Tonight we're going to be talking about visual strategies. Um, just some housekeeping stuff for everybody. It's going to be actually a short presentation. Um, so if you, as we're going along, have any questions, feel free to go ahead and send them along. We might wait till the end to go ahead and address them. And also, if you would like a copy of the PowerPoint, you can either just message or private message even your email address just so we can send it along to you. So we're going to give everybody
or
just
put it in the comments.
Oh, sorry.
Or put their email in the comments.
Oh yeah, in the comments. Sorry. Thank you, Julie. I have all my tech support over here helping remind me. And so we'll probably give everybody just a few minutes. Maybe like 1 or 2 minutes here to get everybody on board. I hope some people came back from the sensory presentation. And we're going to have another one tomorrow night about homework help, and then we'll have one next week as well. So I hope you guys can join us, and I hope you guys are enjoying them. We're kind of enjoying doing these, and we're learning as we go. So we'll just give a couple minutes here for some more people to join us. And again, just as a reminder, if you'd like a copy of the PowerPoint, you can, private message or, comment with your email so we can get you this PowerPoint. It is going to be a short one again, like I said. And so, like I said, feel free, you go ahead and you let us know what your questions are as we're going through, and we will see what we can address either as we're going or at the very end of the PowerPoint. So we're really excited to have everybody. I hope we have a big crowd. I know we were supposed to have a big crowd last week, and so I apologize. We had some technical difficulties, but I'm just going to check in real quick.
Good. We have people on, and I'm sending out the.
Okay.
Sending it out right.
And we're a couple minutes in, so I think we'll just go ahead and get started. And then if people join us a little bit later, they can, check in and let us know. So tonight what we're going to be talking about is some visual strategies. And they are targeted for, students we work with and clients we work with that are on the autism spectrum, but it doesn't mean it can't be used for other individuals as well. So I just wanted to let everybody know that. Okay, so let's get started with what is a visual aid. And I think all of us are very familiar with using visual aids. Anything that you can see that helps you understand an idea or concept, anything that's can supplement written or spoken information. It could be any kind of different, like a photograph, written words, drawings, lists. When I was thinking about this, I'm sure every single one of us can think about something we use regularly. I'm sure most of us are used to using planners, post-it notes, and even some like random ones that I could think of is like occasionally when let's say I don't have my dish, like when my dish detergent runs out, I might leave the empty bottle on the counter just so that's a reminder for me to go ahead and purchase a new one. Or the other one that irritates my family regularly is that I'll also like put a bag on the door just so I remember to return something I have to take to the store. So I mean, visual aids they're pretty diverse. They're not just, I think, what we commonly think about as like a visual schedule. And so I wanted everybody to kind of consider the fact that they're very diverse. So where do we use them? We use them everywhere. I mean, just like I was saying, um, we use them very diversely, and we use them across like home, school, daycare, maybe even like employment training. And for whatever reason, like every time I think about employment training, I don't know if anybody else has gone into like a public restroom, but they always have the list of what needs to be done to clean the bathroom whenever you go to a gas station. And so the visual aids are everywhere. They're across um, multiple, placements, and certainly, like I said before, they don't have to be just for people that are on the autism spectrum. They're there to help all of us. Okay, and so these are some really great examples, and this is a pretty long list here, but when it comes to using visuals, we might use them to teach routines. And one thing I actually thought about whenever I was kind of preparing for the presentation is um, I've had an experience before where um, I've had clients that are on the spectrum, um, and the parent or teacher, assumes that they need a visual schedule just because they're on the spectrum, and that's not necessarily the case. So it is important to kind of remember whenever, and we'll talk about this a little bit more, but um, teaching routines is important, and that's a very uh, useful way to use visual aids, but it doesn't mean you have to use it just because somebody is necessarily on the spectrum. Um, and a couple other really great ways to use visual aids is giving choices. Um, I've had the case where um, somebody really loved uh, videos, and we were able to kind of utilize just a simple visual to let them know what videos might be available for them, so that we ensured that they had more variety in watching the videos instead of watching the same video over and over again. Some other good ways to use the visual aids: staying on task. This is an excellent resource to use, especially with the first then schedule, which I will show you guys a little bit later. We also have, teaching a new skill. And I think if you guys can see it okay, no, I'm sorry. I will show you guys a little bit later um, a really good task analysis. That is an excellent way of helping to break down the different steps um, in in a certain task, um, to help somebody learn how to do that. Communicate rules. I think we see these all the time. We see these, especially in like maybe preschool and kindergarten classrooms, and also like schools that do a really good job of using positive behavior support, where they actually have the rules and expectations posted. And that's such a useful thing to do that we sometimes overlook. But having those expectations posted and communicated to people really helps um, to ensure that behavior is that our kids know what's expected of them, and then it helps us also reinforce them. So then also some good reasons to use visual aids is supporting transitions, um, also time management. And I can't say this one enough. I especially love the time timer. But I mean, any kind of timer, especially, can be really useful in helping our kids know how long we expect them to engage in work, uh, how long, you know, that their break is, so that they know when it's going to end. Um, Especially, I don't know if anybody's, I'm sure many of you have had this experience where, uh, the kid, your child is um, watching a TV show or playing especially playing video games. And we kind of need a certain deadline for them to wrap up the video games to do homework. And so that's where a timer might come in handy. Um, and then the last couple of things here is communicate emotions, which we have a really great example a little bit later on. I'm going to show you. That's a visual aid for communicating emotion. And then we also have, decrease anxiety, because especially, again, this applies to all students, but especially with students with autism, there can be a lot of anxiety related to predictability. And so the more we can help them understand what to expect, the more successful they can be. So, all right. So now going into it, there's a couple things that are really important when it comes to developing visual aids. It's very important that the visual aid is personalized. Personalized in every sense of the word. So this could be for what a child's interests might be, what their favorite colors are. This could also be some children, might not be as visual as others. And so, we always assume that we might do a visual aid with pictures, but sometimes it might be important that it's written. And that could also come down to what their developmental age is. So, again, and the next point, it has to be relevant to the individual and the lesson. It needs to be simple and easy to understand. And this is really important because when we develop a visual aid, it's not something we should expect a student to just understand outright. It's something we probably will need to teach and help them utilize. It needs to be clearly visible. This is something that's also very important because there's times we develop something and unfortunately maybe it gets tucked in a cubby or tucked in a book bag, and so we need to make sure things are clearly visible, clearly accessible, and like we already said, it needs to be very much in line with the individual needs of the student and their stage of development. I think about sometimes, again, we might think of visual aids, visual schedules in terms of pictures, but when we have a middle schooler or a high schooler, it just might not be that appropriate. It might be more appropriate to develop something that's with written words. So, all right, what it's not. Again, it's not a complete method of teaching. It's not expected that they're going to know what it is, what's expected of them. We have to make sure we take necessary steps to teach them whatever the visual aid is that we're working on, and it's not necessarily appropriate for all lessons. I have had a couple different clients that really don't need a visual schedule, but because that was something that was recommended just as a general advisement for a student with autism, then it was insisted upon, and it was actually more difficult because they really didn't need it. They didn't need assistance with transitions, and so we had to kind of step back and not utilize that. The other thing I can think about as a good example is I had a client that really needed help with transitions, but needed help in the moment. And so having a visual schedule that was posted on the wall was not appropriate at all, because what we really needed is we needed help whenever he was moving between the classroom and speech therapy, or from the classroom to the gym. He really needed something that was more of a mobile visual aid. So, all right. So there's lots of different ways to present visual aids. These are some really great examples. The very first one here, I will say you have to consider whether or not you might want to use a vertical or a horizontal presentation of the visual aid, especially like a visual schedule. And where this becomes important, especially, is some students, again, with autism or not, they might have a problem crossing midline. And so, if that happens, then you want to kind of divert away from the vertical, or I'm sorry, away from the horizontal and move more towards a vertical schedule. So that's especially where that problem can arise. And I've already kind of commented also, sometimes you might want to use a schedule, but if you have a student that doesn't really seem to have much problem with transitions, there's no reason to insist on having a visual schedule. You might use other visuals that assist during the classroom time, such as like the timer or the first then board. And sorry, we had a little bit of a distraction. And so then some other ways to present using the file folder systems. Those can be really great systems to use, especially there's some really great ways of teaching different skills with file folders. We've already talked a little bit about timers, and there's a variety of timers. I do love the time timer. The time timer allows for a student to see the actual countdown happen visually with like the red disappearing. So that's really wonderful. Single symbol, the best example I can think of with single symbol is a break card. And a break card can be really effective for students, especially students who have trouble with communication. It can help them express the fact that they need a break rather than going into a meltdown mode. And of course, we also have the social story and the first then board. And I really love, I don't know if everybody can, no, I can't. I was going to point at, oh, there we go. Okay. So this is a really great first then, I think, where you can adhere pictures onto the first, next, then. And that can be really effective in helping students know what's expected of them from work, across possibly two different work scenarios into like a reward, which would be the then. So I'm going to check in real quick just to make sure. Do we have any questions we need to?
No, we're good to go.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So when we're talking about creating a visual aid, we want to think about again what kind of aid we want to create. And I've already mentioned this, but we want to make sure to keep in mind it needs to be developmentally appropriate. And so whenever we have some more advanced, sorry, we have a little bit of a distraction. So whenever we have somebody who's a little bit more advanced, we might want to focus more on words rather than pictures. So just because it's visual doesn't mean it has to be pictures. But we also might want to use a combination. And I like using the combination of words and pictures, especially for the younger kids, because if you think about even just the way sometimes a preschool classroom might be set up, it's very helpful to have the picture combined with the word, because it helps to build those language skills. We also need to, again, think about like how we choose the layout. And I have already mentioned this, but sometimes we have kids that might have trouble crossing midline. And if you have a kid that might have trouble crossing midline, then you might want to go with something that's more horizontal, just to avoid any of those problems. And I feel like we've kind of mentioned this a little bit as well, but we need to start simple and be consistent, because again, this isn't something that's just we're expecting to set up and it's just going to work by itself. It's something that we're going to have to teach. It's something that everybody has to, including us adults, everybody has to consistently implement and give access to, and help the child learn, uh, because it's not something that we just naturally expect them to understand on their own. Um, so it doesn't need to be portable. And I think, I already mentioned this example, but this was a very prominent example for me when I was early in my career, where uh, I had a child that was having consistent problems getting from the classroom to speech therapy, from the classroom to OT, from the classroom to gym. It was always when we were leaving the classroom, and it took us a little bit to figure out like what we were going to do, because we had actually initially set up a visual schedule that was just on the wall, um, and and we thought we were helping to communicate to him, where he was going. But once we got in the hallway, he was having meltdowns. I mean, dropping to the floor. Luckily, not banging his head or anything, but we were really concerned, and it took us a little bit. And then we came up with the idea, well, let's just put the whole visual schedule on a little ring, and that way, when we're moving from classroom to classroom, we can show him. And it made the world of difference. So, it is something that's worth considering sometimes when there's, especially problems with the transitioning. You might want to consider a portable option. Um, and we've already talked about this. You need to teach the process to the individual. There's no way we don't develop this and then just expect them to understand it. We have to teach it to them. And I cannot, one of the most important pieces here is you have to make changes when necessary. You can't expect that you're going to develop a visual schedule or some kind of other visual strategy that's going to work perfectly the first time around. Um, I actually have an individual I'm working with right now, and what we do is we just create the draft of what the visual aid is, and we go and try it, and then we make all of our little edits, and then we finalize, what we're going to do. Like, so the first time around, it's just a blank, it's just a page, and then we figure out what our edits are, and then we print it, make our final edits, and then we finally laminate it. So don't expect that it's going to be perfect the first time around, and know that you're going to probably need to make some changes. So here's some good examples. You've already seen the first then, or first next then, I should say. See if I can, there we go. Here's some good schedules and to-do lists. And here's some good communication strategies down here with the I wants. And these are really great choice boards. And then again, we have some more to-do lists. So there are a lot of different apps. There's no way we could probably like actually list all of the apps that are available. The one I will say is very, if you go to the Social Stories Creator and Library, it's not only an amazing resource for visuals, but there's also some great learning apps as well. So, it's a really excellent resource. All of the timers are really great, and you can see, just like we were talking about earlier, what's really awesome with a lot of these timers is the countdown is very visual, and some of these end up revealing like something that would hopefully be like a preferred image, preferred um, activity for the kid. So I think that's about it for us. We do have some excellent resources on our Pinterest page, on our YouTube page. We also, I think, hopefully, I think, have some PowerPoints maybe that are available?
There's the one that I emailed out, and I did send it to those that requested it.
Okay.
There's videos on YouTube, and there's also several boards on the Pinterest.
Okay.
There's a social stories board, a visuals, a 5-point scale, all that to print out.
Yeah. So, I mean, we have like a ton of stuff out there, and we have a ton of stuff on our website too. And obviously, you know, if you're not registered with us and, you know, you're an individual of any age on the autism spectrum and you live in West Virginia, you're welcome to our services, and you can call us at the number there. And I am happy to answer any questions. Do we have some questions?
Not yet.
Okay.
Good.
Well, then I did my job, I guess.
Yeah, you answered them all. Yeah.
I know we have a little bit of delay, so we'll just kind of wait. Okay, so I think we're good, and doesn't sound like we have any questions. So we are going to be on tomorrow night at the same time, 5:30. We're going to actually do a homework help session, and I think we're good. So you guys have a great night, and I will see you tomorrow night.